Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Mike here at Gamefromscratch, and today we're going to talk about who could buy Unity. And I'm not saying Unity is being bought. Unity are not being bought. And to suggest that someone is buying Unity would be just pure clickbait. And that leads us over to 80LV. Earlier this week, they did this article, and straight up, this is clickbait, and there's no other way to put it. The headline says, analysts suggest Apple might be considering buying Unity after legal defeat to Epic Games. Now, this is just some guy, specifically this guy right here. He suggested that it would make sense for Apple to buy Unity after the recent beats by legal beats. So basically, Apple have had to open up their app store in North America and Europe due to losses to Epic Games and other people. So their multi-billion-dollar walled garden, well, the walls are crumbling a little bit on that one. But that's literally all this is. This is a guy who went through and explained why it would make sense potentially to buy Unity. And then that's it. There's literally nothing out there to suggest that Apple is thinking about it or that Unity is looking to be acquired or anything else. So what I'm going to do, just as a fun thought exercise that comes from this, is we're going to look at the industry players out there that could buy Unity, that would make sense to buy Unity, and why they will or won't do it, and what it would mean for developers. And we're going to start things off with the most obvious answer. Nobody. So Unity could just stay Unity. There's really no reason for Unity to need to be acquired right now. Now, here's a fun fact. Unity has been profitable exactly 1 quarter since its existence. Back in 2022, they made a profit. Other than that, they generally lose money and always have. That's not unusual in the world of tech companies, but it's not also infinitely sustainable. But the thing is, Unity have $1.5 billion worth of cash and cash equivalents on hand. And honestly, their finances are actually getting better. With their most recent stock reports, etc., they're still losing money, but they're losing money in a more sustainable way, I guess you could say it. And the underlying fundamentals are getting better. So there's really, right now, Unity does not need to sell. So that's the important thing to start things off. There is no requirement yet for Unity to look for a suitor. Now, if someone's going to come out and make a huge premium offer on their share price, they have like a fiduciary responsibility to consider it. But other than that, there's no reason for them to have to sell right now. So there's answer number 1. Literally nobody. Unity stays Unity, and Bob's your uncle. We just keep going as it is. Now, the first one we're going to talk about here is the premise of that original article. Apple. Does it make sense for Apple to buy Unity? Well, partially, it kind of does. There's good synergy between Apple and Unity in that Unity has, it's one of the most predominant products on Apple platforms. You know what? Unity actually started life as an Apple exclusive product. It wasn't until Unity 2.5, now we're talking like 15, 20 years ago, but Unity 2.5 and earlier were Apple-only products. It was only more recently that it became available on Windows platforms, the development tools, that is. So Unity has always supported Apple platforms and has supported, the new products pretty much day one. So when Apple Vision came out, they launched on Unity. iPad, new SDKs, etc. Unity pretty much has day one support. So there's good synergy between the two companies. And then another area where they really kind of compete and where they could actually kind of work together or where Apple could benefit something is the Unity Create and Unity Grow side of things. Now, Unity Grow is like their ad acquisitions. So user acquisition and ad company. That's actually where Unity makes the majority of their money. And Apple is in that space as well. So that's one of those areas where they could work together in some ways. And then, of course, Unity is probably the most used game engine for like the vast majority. You go to Apple Arcade, for example, and you're going to find like these games. Everything you're looking at here, I would bet at least 50% of them were created using Unity. So Apple very much wants Unity to continue to exist as a product. So why does it not make sense for it to be Apple? Well, number one, Apple just doesn't buy companies like this. They do not spend this kind of money. So you get an idea, right now, Unity is trading at about $10.5 billion. So that is their total number of outstanding shares and the current share price of it. And when you buy a company, you generally pay a premium on it, like 15 to 50% on it. So let's say they would trade for it would cost you about $15 billion, let's say, for Apple to buy Unity at a 20-ish% premium on their current trade price. The biggest acquisition that Apple has ever done to date is Beats at $3 billion. Other than that, they've bought some software here and there, but I can't see them spending this kind of, it's just not the way that Apple works. So I don't see Apple buying up. And the other thing is, how would this turn out for developers? Whoa. I could see Apple potentially making it so that you use Unity to develop for their platforms, using it as a tool in that regard, and then de-emphasizing Windows or consoles or so on. And that I don't think would be great for developers. But again, I don't think Apple would buy Unity just because this just isn't how Apple operates for the most part. Now, the next company we've got is Amazon, specifically Amazon Games. Now, the biggest reason why I think Amazon could potentially do this is because Amazon, unlike Apple, they spend huge money almost on a whim. They've bought film companies. They've bought gaming companies. They actually spent a ton of money on creating their own in-house game studios by buying up a number of game studios, plus a perpetual license to CryEngine that they ultimately turned into Lumberyard. But now we're going to get into where that turned out, is they ultimately got rid of Lumberyard, open sourced it as O3DE. Amazon Game Studios, about half of the companies they acquired have all been shuttered. Now, there are areas where Amazon and Unity could mesh very well. Again, Amazon owns some properties that Unity integrates well, things like Twitch. You could have tighter integration into Amazon Web Services. You could transition over the Unity Grow side of the company over to Amazon's technology stack. There are ways that they fit, but at the same time, Amazon proved to be incredibly incompetent as a game company. I don't know that they want to do that again. Now, and for developers, as long as they don't kill off the project, having Amazon as an owner could actually be a good move for Unity because they don't really care about platforms. So they would continue to support Windows and Apple and all these other stores. They would just integrate their own technology in. So could be a good steward in that regard. Now, this next one up, I think 2 years ago would have made all kinds of sense. Right now, no chance in hell. And that is Tencent Games. Now, I mentioned Tencent Games because they have a history of making massive investments in the gaming world. Like basically, name a publisher, I almost bet you that Tencent owns a stake in it. Big or small. Like they just, Ubisoft, yeah, sure, they own a big stake there. And then another one here is in 2012, Tencent Games invested and bought a 40% stake in Epic Games. So they're definitely in this space already. Now, here's the thing. Under the political climate we live in now, the odds of someone like Tencent Game being able to buy up an American company is like zero. It's just not going to happen. And in fact, we already kind of got into some regulatory issues with Tencent earlier on where they removed their people from the Epic Games board because of some investigations that were happening because of their ownership of Riot Games and Epic Games. So I just think regulatory approval, no chance in hell of this happening. Now, the thing is, it actually could have been a pretty good fit because Tencent tends to be money and then hands off. As long as you're going in a strategy that they approve of, they're pretty hands-off on these things. And Unity is actually in China. They have a joint venture specifically for Unity growth in China. And then, of course, they have Unity around the world. It could have been a good pickup, but the fact is Tencent already owns a stake in Unreal Engine. I can't imagine any regulatory environment where they were allowed to own a stake in both major game engines. Again, especially under the current political climate we are in. Now, this next one comes up a lot when you talk about potential suitors for Unity, and that is Microsoft. And there's a couple of reasons for this. Number one, Microsoft has pushed huge into games. They just spent $60 billion acquiring Activision. They have made major purchases in the past. They spent $4 or $5 billion acquiring Minecraft. They spent $9 billion, I think it was, acquiring Skype. Microsoft have no issues with cutting a really large paycheck. And there are some areas where there are good synergies. Again, like how Amazon has AWS integrations, Microsoft has Azure. So their analytics side of things and the cloud side of things, they could have good synergy with what Unity offers. Obviously, of course, they have a gaming infrastructure they want to build up too. So you could potentially help build into Xbox and Game Pass and other platforms there. And like Apple, Microsoft are basically tightly integrated with Unity when the new platform comes out. There's generally day one support from Unity as well. Now, the flip side is I don't see a lot of upside for Microsoft to do this. I personally don't see it unless Unity was at a fear of completely going away, in which Microsoft definitely would probably step in to buy up the pieces because they have a strategic benefit. But as long as Unity is viable as a third party, I don't see Microsoft gaining a whole lot here. Now, Microsoft has bought gaming companies in the past, like they bought Havok. They still run Havok Physics, for example. But I personally don't see Microsoft doing this. And another thing, and a big downside to Microsoft, especially when it comes to the way developers work, Microsoft are very market reactive. So when the market is downturned, they do a lot of layoffs. And getting rid of companies they acquired wholesale doesn't bother them in the least. So I used to think that Microsoft would be one of the safest stewards for Unity. These days, I kind of think that the odds of Unity just going away are like terrifying under a Microsoft regime. So that is, again, another possibility. Microsoft has shown in the past where they are willing to spend this kind of money. And there are some areas where Unity and Microsoft line up. I don't see it personally, but I'm curious what your opinion on that one is. And then finally, the one company I think is the most likely to buy Unity if Unity is sold is this one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is AppLovin. Now, AppLovin may be a company you've never even heard of, but there are basically three major players in this space, and now there's two major players in this space. One is Unity, which is, again, Unity's Grow division. The other one is ironSource, which is basically an amalgamation now of Unity. Unity merged with ironSource, and then the other competitor in this space is AppLovin. Now, AppLovin's technology stack, and a lot of their customers are using Unity. There is a lot of reason for AppLovin to merge with Unity. In fact, like they kind of do the same thing on the create side of things. So on the grow side of things. So I could actually see where AppLovin would come in and basically own this segment of the market if they were allowed to do so. And I'm not talking idly here. If we go back in time to 2022, AppLovin actually tried to buy Unity at $17.5 billion. Now take that number and look at it and think, okay, that is more than a 50% premium on what their current valuation is at $10.5 billion. If they did that same offer today, would Unity take it? Now the question is, would they get regulatory approval, because they all kind of do the same thing. But AppLovin did straight out try to buy Unity when Unity was talking about merging with ironSource. But now that ironSource isn't really a company anymore, AppLovin buying Unity would kind of make a monopoly in this space. So I could see how it wouldn't be allowed, but I can also see how AppLovin would absolutely love to do this. And there's a real good reason why you might want to consider on this one, and that is the stock valuation. So right now, AppLovin is exploding, and their PE ratio is 75 to 1, so they're definitely highly valued in the market, but their market capitalization is $141 billion. Yeah, so AppLovin has become very large, and they're very beloved as a publicly traded company. So now picking up a Unity at 10 billion, so even at a 15 or a 20 billion premium, it's pocket change to them. Now here we go. Here's Unity market cap 10 billion. AppLovin $141 billion. So yeah, AppLovin is huge. And now the funny thing is, let's go back in time to where things all went wrong. So we've got back here 2022. So it's right around here. This is the point where AppLovin was looking to buy out Unity. And Unity merged with ironSource because they had to. They were in financial trouble. They needed to get the stock, they had to keep the stock market happy. And that was one of the ways that they got out of it. So here's back in time, we're talking about right here, 2022. This is where they were at. And things have not gone great in that time. But look at now. So, yeah. Now, the stock market is absolutely bonkers, and a lot of these valuations are insane. But AppLovin is absolutely, utterly flush with cash right now. Now, let's look at the same trajectory 5 years with Unity. So this is from when they went public till now. So here is post-public. So this is 2021. They're trading at $200 a share. 2022, when this whole merger stuff happened, we're looking down at the $50-ish a share. And now we're looking down at, they're resurging. They're definitely, if you look at Unity this way, it's a better story. It's a stabilized story. The bleeding has stopped. But when you look at a Unity over 5 years and the trajectory there, and you look at AppLovin over the same period, well, there is a hell of a lot of synergy there. So of all the companies out there that could potentially buy Unity, AppLovin is the one that makes the most sense to me. personally. But I'm curious, do you have a different opinion here? Or do you think anyone is going to buy Unity? Would you like to see Unity bought? And if so, who do you see on the list that I just gave? Or is there someone else you can think of? Again, it all comes back. This original article, 80 LV, pure clickbait. So Unity, this analyst suggesting they might be considering, I could say Apple might be considering going to the moon to farm bananas. They might be considering it. They're not, but they might be. Well, that is literally all they have to go from. This is just some guy who said, here is why it would make sense for Apple to do it. Not to indicate there's anything to indicate that Apple are looking to buy Unity. There's nothing out there that is at least publicly available. So this is purely a thought exercise, but it comes up quite a bit about who could buy Unity and how it would work out. And those were my opinions. I'm curious, do you have different ones? Do let me know in the comments down below. I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.